selling. There will be times where I will ask you questions and ask you to put information in the chat, because I like to do this in terms, in relationship to where you're at, what you're thinking, so that I can be sure I'm giving you the most detailed information I possibly can. So most of us either love selling or hate it. And that is not unusual. There are people who it's perfectly comfortable for them, and then many other people where it is not. In the chat, I would love it if you would share with me when you think about selling, challenges, concerns, fears, beliefs, when you think about selling, when we say sales, selling, what comes to mind for you? Like what pops up for you? Sorry, Michael. I didn't even realize it did that. Listen, yes, Charlie, absolutely. That is a huge, huge part. Who are they? How can I help? Perfect, Mimi. Thank you. Who else? What else do we have? Scared. Oh, not getting my words together quick enough. That's great, Kim. Thank you. We're gonna talk about some of that. Who else do I have? Anyone else? Pain points. Good, good, good. Scared but willing to do it. Solution positioning. Excellent. Providing solutions. Absolutely. Yep. Coffee is for closers. Always be closing, right? We're going to talk about that. Yeah, Janice, willing but not my cup of tea. I get it. Trouble getting to the sales proposition. Okay. Michael doesn't like coffee. Is tea for closers, Michael? Okay, this is great. Understanding your solution, product, excellent. Excellent. Got it. Okay, so come on, we got to go to the next one. I can't believe this is doing this. Hang on. Oops, hang on. Sorry, I did not realize that was. Next. Hold tight while I figure out. Here we go. Okay. Now, having knowledge and confidence in what I'm selling. Absolutely. So let's talk about selling and discovery. We've been taught, and we have this belief system that selling is about being eloquent, being able to convince, persuade, talk someone into something, that if only we are eloquent enough, they will get it. Like that our job is to show them why they can't live without what it is we sell. But that's where we get coffee is for closers, and we get always be closing. The problem with always be closing mentality is that then no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you're looking for clients. You're looking for customers. You're seeing everyone as a potential customer, if only you can sell them, right? Well, no. I'm just going to say in this day and age that does not work. It's part of the reason why people aren't comfortable with it, why they feel like it's not their cup of tea. The reality is that the ABCs of sales in this day and age are really always be curious. So we want to be sure that we are learning about the people, the companies, whoever it is that we are engaging with. Because the more we learn, the more we know, the more we have that we can talk with them about, but also the more we can identify where they fit in our world in some instances, whether we have a solution for them in other instances where we can connect them to resources. So discovery opens up a whole world, and it's a mindset. It takes us out of selling mode and puts us into learning mode. Okay. So that's what we're going to be talking about and really digging in with. Okay, in these various aspects of selling, how does that work? What does that look like? So let's hope this does this. I have three hard truths that I would like to go over with you. The first one is you can't sell. And what I mean by that is you can't sell anything to anyone. People will buy from you when they have a need and when they trust you. So we need to let go of this whole idea of that it's something I'm doing or that you are doing to or with someone else. The second hard truth is that no one cares. No one cares about your product or service. They don't care that you have people you have to pay. They don't care that you have a mortgage or that your kid needs braces. They don't care. They don't care until they know that you care about them, until they know that your main interest is in helping them problem solve. Until then, none of the other things matter, and they're not paying attention to them. And focus matters. And what I mean by focus matters is that you need to be focusing on them, not you, right? So this is historically what people do. They're thinking about those people they have to pay. They're thinking about their quota, their kid who needs braces. They're thinking, I have to make this sale. I need the revenue. I have to hit my numbers. I have to hit my goals. And that focus creates a situation where there can be desperation, there can be, it's this hyper hunt, and that is noticed by everyone around them. Every single person they're engaging in, that's what people see. They see that emphasis. They see that the salesperson is focused on themselves, on closing the deal, on making the sale. And what they know is they don't care about me. I could be anybody. I could be any company. So we need to flip that script, right? We need to make sure that we are focusing solely on them. And I'm going to offer a couple of additional thoughts on this. One is that truly, in reality, it's not about the revenue that you bring in. It's about the profit that you realize. You can bring in all sorts of business, but if it's not profitable, it's going to do more harm than good. And if it's not profitable to a certain percentage, to, within a certain margin, it's going to do more harm than good. So many people focus on just getting the money that they aren't being curious. They aren't paying attention to the signals that are being thrown out by the other party, and they end up getting into relationships with clients that are not in their best interest. So if I could ask you if you have ever, excuse me, if you have ever had a bad client, use the hand raise. Let's see what we got here. If you've got the reactions. I do, Michael. Um, okay. I don't think I am seeing them, but I am curious. So in the chat, please share if you just say yes, if you have ever had a bad client. Should have told you this was participatory, right? Excellent. Not bad, but character issues. Ooh, Winnie, would you mind sharing more about the character issues that you're mentioning? Intense, but not bad. Have a lot. Okay, good. This is good. Yeah, so I'm curious what character issues are. Because really, we've all had bad clients, and I submit it's because we were either ignoring the signals that they were sending out, or we were weighing them and deciding that we needed the money more than and we would worry about it later. I see. Thank you. Bad language usage. Okay. So the problem with it is that bad clients have a tendency to consume a lot of our time, our resources, our energy. They also can tend to never be happy. So they complain a lot. They are constantly negotiating price. They don't necessarily make decisions. They don't give us what we need. It depends on the industry and what's going on there. And all of those things add up to cost. And they can influence our attitude, how much we enjoy what we're doing, and can keep us from going out and getting the good clients, getting the good customers. Because we're spending all our time over here, we're exhausted. We don't have that energy to put on a happy face and go and work on positive prospecting or positive conversations. So we want to really shift our thinking from selling to learning. Okay. Now, let's talk about networking. In the chat, tell me why you network. Any of the reasons why you go networking. And it's a black screen. Network is your net worth. Thank you. Keep up on the industry. Excellent. Increase potential client pool. Okay. Meet new people and opportunity to learn. Grow and learn, meet people, support and develop relationships, get referral business, understand market needs. These are great. Learning opportunity, right? Introduction to people you'd not otherwise be aligned with. Definitely. Increase better clients. Yep. Okay. So, yes, absolutely. Here's the interesting thing. When we go networking, we have a goal. And for me, our goal should be about learning as much as we can about other people so that we can figure out how they fit in our world. So someone said, a couple people said better clients, new clients, whatever. The reality is, if you go to a networking event looking for clients, you're potentially going to be disappointed. And you run the risk of spending your time sharing about your business with people who don't care about your business, right? And you end up doing all the talking. If we put discovery in and we say, okay, how does discovery work, and what is the use of discovery when we're networking? If we go with a goal of, I want to see who's there and how they might fit into my world, you can see on this diagram that some of the people are going to be great resources that you can share with other people. Some will be referral partners. Some could even be strategic partners. Some are just going to be business friends. Some are going to be the people who you don't want to have anything to do with. They're just not your cup of tea. And some, there's going to be nothing there, right? And the only way you're going to know is to be in discovery mode, to be totally open to wanting to learn about people, to not go into networking, passing out your business cards to everybody and giving them your pitch and telling them all about your business. It's the reverse. It's going out networking to learn. What I do when I network, and I learned it as one of the top 5 things you should do when you go networking, is to say to someone, tell me your story. Tell me about you. I don't, hi, I'm Diane, right? Tell me about you, because I want to learn about them. I want to know what's top of mind. I want to get into a conversation with them, because that's how you build relationships. You don't build relationships around what you do for a living and how that might connect to the person you're talking to. That comes later. And the thing about networking is it takes time to build those relationships. You're not going to walk into a networking event and meet someone and all of a sudden they're sending you referrals or you're sending them referrals. And I will tell you, I don't think you want to do that because you don't know them yet. You don't know if they really understand what you do or if they're good at what they do. They may have a bad reputation in the business world. You don't necessarily want them giving you referrals because then people might associate you with them. As far as resources go, you're going to meet someone who does IT. But you don't know if they're good at it. You have to build that relationship. You have to get to know them. What are their business practices? Are they ethical? How do they treat their clients? How do they treat their employees? All of these things. Then you know whether they're a valid resource. And so you're building like this toolbox around you. So wherever you go, whoever you're talking to, when you're in discovery and you're listening and they say something they need, and it's not what you do, you can say, I know someone who's really good at that. Would you like me to make an introduction? Right? And Charlie said in the chat, after you get a feel for them, ask them, what can I do to help you? Right? Take the time to build the relationship. My viewpoint is go to a networking event with a goal of meeting 1 to 2 people or re-engaging with 1 or 2 people you've met previously and learn something about them. And then you have to follow up. If there's someone who you'd like to learn more, invite them to coffee. If it's a virtual networking thing, invite them to a Zoom, right? You can't just go to the networking thing and not follow up and expect to build relationships. It's like dating. So you want to learn if they fit into your world, where do they fit into your world? And then take the next step to building the relationship with them. Write them a handwritten note, invite them for coffee, connect with them on LinkedIn. Do something to further that relationship and be willing to take the time because it's going to take time. When I do trainings, I say, you should not refer anyone you meet for 60 days. You should take that 60 days to get to know them. Because right when you meet them, it may seem like, oh, they're great. But then you got to find out how they really are. And when it comes to like strategic partners, so I could say, a really good strategic alliance for me is a small business CPA. But that doesn't mean it's any small business CPA. I still have to meet some, get to know them, see if there's synergy, see if I could be referring them. And if I would want, and if they feel like they could refer me, right? And I would want them to refer me. It's a process, right? So, Richard, what are the 2 things you want to walk away with from discovery? I don't know that there's 2. I mean, you want to have identified people who you want to get to know further. And I would say people who you don't, because that's valid as well. There's going to be people who you're just going to say, I'm not feeling it. I'm not going to spend my time. And those are usually the people who are spending all their time networking, trying to get you to buy their whatever it is they sell. If you think about it, you don't like that. You don't like it when people do it to you. Don't do it to other people. They may fit your framework of what an ideal client looks like, and you still don't know whether they are until you've had a conversation with them. Okay, which comes later. So that's selling, is having a conversation with them later, and we'll get to that. So we have to be careful that we don't fall into that trap of, well, if I could only, show them how valuable my product or service is, I'm sure they would buy it. No, you're not. Because you don't know whether it's valuable to them. Let's say you sell pencils. They may get their pencils from their brother-in-law. They could look exactly like your ideal client and they're never going to buy from you. But they could be a really great business friend and they could end up being a really good resource and they might end up being a referral source. They may end up referring you to people because you weren't trying to sell them, because you built the relationship with them, and because they trust you. And they may want to offer, a handful of resources to someone instead of just one. Okay? Okay. So that's networking. I can tell you that when I network, I go in assuming no one needs what I have to sell. So I'm never in sales mode. I am always in discovery mode. And I pick up on cues. I learn an awful lot about the people in the room. I take the quieter ones and help them meet people, right? For anyone on this webinar who is an introvert, introverts make the best networkers because they don't like to talk. So they're going to ask the question and then they're going to be quiet. And they're going to let the other person talk. And the other person's going to feel great about it. And they're going to listen and learn an awful lot. Okay. I will also say that I think, excuse me, one of the worst questions you can ask is, so what do you do? And I think it's because people are going to tell you what they do. And I don't think you really care. And they don't care about what you do. Remember before, no one cares? You want to know about them. Why do they do what they do? How did they get into it? What's real, what does a big win look like for them? Are there any challenges they experience doing it, when things are going on in the world? So we want to make sure we're in discovery mode. We want to make sure that we are learning. And the last thing I will say about this in discovery is more people are going to want to be around you if this is how you're presenting yourself than if you are in sales mode. If you are in sales mode, they're just not even going to listen. They may be polite, but they're not listening to what you're saying. They don't care. And yeah, Charlie, it's what's in it for me. So we don't want to be the person who's, so focused on ourselves and our needs that we aren't learning anything about the people in front of us. So now let's talk about prospecting. Now I will say, prospecting is different if you sell B2B or if you sell B2C. When I'm talking about prospecting, I'm really talking about the research that we should be doing before we're ever doing any sort of outreach. So we have our target market. We have what we believe an ideal client looks like. And then, like the next step is creating let's say we're selling B2B, creating a list of companies that are in that target. We have choices. We can just start reaching out to them, or we can do discovery. Chances are good we're going to spend the same amount of time. What I know is we're going to be more productive if we do our discovery before we do our outreach. And what that looks like is researching those companies, knowing our ideal well enough to know how to whittle down, how to say, that one isn't necessarily one that's worth having a conversation with. Learning as much as we possibly can so that we're not spending time reaching out to prospects that really aren't. And two, that we have something to say. We have something to talk with them about that has to do with them. So it shows them we've done our research. We've learned about them. We aren't just fishing in a big pool. Now, I'm going to tell you a story to somewhat drive my point home. I have a client who was doing her prospecting research. There was a company that she had been trying to get a hold of. And so before she and I started working together, she was dialing and emailing, and she wasn't getting anywhere. She was getting no responses. Then she started doing her prospecting research, her discovery. She went on this one company's website and she started looking at the leadership profiles. And she noticed that at the bottom of every single profile, it said what their favorite flavor of ice cream was. So she sent an email with the subject line, "My favorite ice cream flavor is ... Then she said, "Dear, whoever the CEO was, real short to the point, this is what we do. Would love to see if we can have a conversation so I can learn more about what you're doing, whether this is something that could help you or not, blah, blah. P.S. chocolate chip." She got an instant response from him where he responded and copied the person that my client was should be talking to and introduced them in the email. And the only reason he responded is because the subject line grabbed his attention because it had something to do with them. Like that wouldn't work anywhere else. But she had done enough of her research and enough of her discovery to know this is something that's connective. This is something that shows them that I know something about them. And she ended up being able to go on. And as a matter of fact, she just re-engaged with them recently. So I'm not saying you get the business because of this. That's a whole other thing. But when we want the conversation, when our goal of prospecting is to get the meeting, we need to know enough about the company or the demographic, whatever it is, in order to be able to connect with them. I will also say that if you sell to consumers, this is a little harder. It's hard to do prospecting research around consumers. It's also hard to prospect to consumers. And calling them up at dinner time is not the way to do it. But what you can do is do some research around common questions that people are asking within your industry, about your industry, and then put on a complimentary workshop or just small event where no selling will happen. You're just sharing information and you're hitting one of these topics that you have found matter and are important to people. And when they're there, you give them an opportunity to continue to engage with you after that event if they want to. Right? And yeah, B2C is harder. It is. People are emotionally attached to their money, but they're also, and we'll talk about this when we're talking about selling, they also don't want to be sold. No one does. So you have to build the relationship with them, and it's harder to find them. So offering something of value to them, you have to know what they need, what they value, what they might want, and offer it to them. And usually it's educational so that they can learn to trust you. so that they can learn that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, you're a go-to, and you're not only there just to try and sell them, that you are there to help, right? Problem solving. Then when they have a need, I said before, people will buy from you when they trust you and they need you. So there's trust, timing, and trouble. Trouble is they have the problem that you solve. Trust is they've learned to trust you. And timing, now the timing's right. That's the only way that interaction is going to happen. You can't push it, you can't convince them. That's how we get to buyer's remorse, which is a reputation killer. Okay? So, the other thing is keep up on current events, because current events directly influence what people need, when they need it, what is top of mind, and when it comes to companies, what is actually going on with that company that is current and relevant to them. They might be building a building, adding staff, opening a whole new division. They might be shrinking. They might be totally relocating. They might get a new president. They might be having an annual meeting. They might have just gotten an award. Who knows? We have the internet. We can find all that information. We have journals, business journals, where business news is shared. There's no reason why we can't do the research ahead of time, and it gives us something to talk with them about when we're doing the outreach. Okay, now let's talk about selling. And I use air quotes when I talk about selling because I don't believe you sell. I believe you learn and you connect. So selling for me, for the purposes of this conversation, is when you're in that meeting. So you've done your prospecting research, you've reached out to the company in some fashion, you've gotten the meeting, and now you have shown up for that meeting, or they have shown up, whatever it is, you are in the same space. Typically what happens and what people believe they're supposed to do is the salesperson talks. So the prospect might say, "So tell me about your widget." And the salesperson pulls out their big presentation and their whole thing, and they start explaining. And they go through their whole song and dance and, could we give you a proposal? And something happens, right? So let me ask you guys, what, if any, challenges do you have either in that sales appointment or after that sales appointment? I'll give you a chance to respond in the chat, please. Certainly, Mimi, the question is, what challenges, if any, do you have in that conversation or after that conversation? And I will say challenges with getting the business. Are you getting the business every time your follow-up? That's a good one. Building trust in the appointment. Yep, an appropriate follow-up. You did not solve their problem. Yeah. What kind of response do you get, Charlie? I'm an introvert, so I have a hard time selling myself and my services. Sure. Not making the meeting most relevant to them. They do not make the final decision. Yep. Connecting with the person in which they say yes or they wanted more for free. Yep. I get it. Right. So I believe, based on experience, that who the decision maker is, yep, absolutely, that the reason why we get these sorts of responses or results, call them whatever you want, is because we are doing all the talking and they are not paying attention because they don't care about what we're talking about. We typically have this belief that we know what's valuable about our product or service, and we need to be able to tell them that. And if we can tell them that in a way that is compelling, they will see how it resonates with them. They will see that they need it or want it. And then we're surprised or we're annoyed or we're frustrated or whatever the word is when that doesn't happen. And then we don't know how to follow up. We've lost this connectivity with them. So now let's talk about what if we were using discovery in our selling process as opposed to selling. And it would look like this. We would go in and we would say, before I share our solution with you, I'm wondering if I could ask you some questions so I'm sure that what I share is relevant. Sure, go ahead. Okay. Then we have to ask our questions. And even when we ask questions, we have a tendency to only ask about the thing that we solve, the thing that we address. And I'm going to ask you to ask more questions than that because there's more things that you need to know. You guys have said them here in the chat. You can ask questions. I think you should be asking questions like, would you mind sharing with me what your decision-making process is? How will you be making this decision? This gives me insight into who the decision maker is and the process that they go through internally. So now I know what I can expect. And if it's a process that I feel like I need to be in more, I can have a conversation with them about how I can participate in that. Okay. But I need to know what that is. Now, I'm not going to ask them who the decision maker is or if they're the decision maker because people don't like that. And they're either going to say yes and they're not, or they're going to get annoyed and then you're not going to be able to learn anything else from that. Okay. So what's your sense of urgency with this? Is this something that you're just exploring right now, or is it something that you've made the decision if you can find a solution provider, you're going to move forward? Okay. Have you ever used a company like ours before? Because if they have, there's a wealth of information you can get from that. Would you mind sharing the experience? What did you like? What would you have changed? Is there a reason you're not using them anymore? Or if they're currently using them, is there a reason why you're exploring, even though you're currently using company ABC? All right. Gives you insight, gives you ideas. And the other thing I'm going to say is for some of these questions, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Based on what they answer, you're going to go deeper. You're going to ask more. Okay. If they've worked with a company like yours before, they have an idea of a budget, right? So budget's this big question that no one wants to answer. And so a salesperson will ask it and the prospect won't answer. And then the salesperson lets it go. And then they put a price in their proposal anyway. And then the prospect comes back and either ghosts them or says, that's way out of our league. That's way more than we were expecting to spend. And that's because we didn't find out what their ceiling was. We didn't go deeper with that question. We didn't feel like we had a right. Well, here's the thing. In order to know whether you can help someone, you need to know money, you need to know situation, you need to know how they work, right? You need to know the need. So our job as a salesperson is not to tell them, it's to learn all of those things so we can put those pieces together. And we can tell them that. If they're hesitant to give us information, we can say, I don't want to waste your time. And, investment is a part of this equation. So it's important that we both know what's doable, what makes sense, what's possible. And we identify whether we can meet all of those things. We either can or we can't, right? Trying to put a round peg in a square hole doesn't work. And I mean, I've said to people, I may be able to help you, I may not be able to help you. How about if we have a conversation and we'll figure it out? And I'll let you know if I can't. Because then, A, it brings the temperature down. I'm not selling them. They know right off I'm not selling them. And B, then I can ask all those questions and I can push on them a little because I can say, remember, we're trying to figure out whether I can help you or not. Now we're not in a selling conversation. We're in a problem solving conversation. Yes, thank you, Charlie. We need to be asking these questions. And I'm going to give you 2 additional questions that I think are critically important, not at the beginning of the conversation, but further in, okay? After you've been asking some of these questions and you've been trying to get this information. I think it's important if you ask these 2 questions and they go together. The first one is, what will the impact be when you make the decision to move forward, whether it's with me or someone else? Okay? What will the impact be when you make the decision to move forward, whether it's with me or someone else? So I just did a couple of things. I presumed that they were going to move forward, when. I also took the selling out of it by saying whether it's with me or someone else. So really what I'm saying is when you decide to do this thing with whoever, what will the impact be? And the reason why this is so important is because we want them to be able to verbalize, from head out, to verbalize the value of the investment. So they're going to say, I'll be able to hire more people, or I'll be able to reduce my cost, or we'll be able to, whatever it is. Okay, great. And what does that do for your company? It sounds like that has a direct impact on your bottom line. It does. It will. Great. What do you think that is? Now, one of the things I know is the real true financial value, the money of whatever this thing is, so that when I'm proposing, I'm able to use that information to show them how valuable the investment is, because the investment's here and the return on investment is here. Okay. The second question that goes with this is, what will the impact be if you don't? Because just like there's an impact if they do, there should be an impact if they don't, and that should be a negative impact. And that has money attached to it. But if they don't move forward, if that impact is not very much, it's going to be hard for them to part with money, because it's just not important enough. It just right now doesn't matter enough. So it's not going to matter what the spend is. It could potentially be hard for them to make that decision. But you're going to know that. You're both going to know that. You're going to be able to say, okay, that's feeling like it's not, it's more of a want than a need, whatever. They may still do it, but getting them to say these things out loud gives you more information, but it gives them information that they came to. You didn't tell them what it was going to be. They came to it themselves with why they should be doing this thing. Okay. You still have to ask all the questions around the situation. The other thing that happens here when you're asking these questions and they're answering them is you're further deepening the trust in the relationship because you're making sure you get the information that you need and that they need to know as well. If they are not giving you the information you're asking for, do they really want to do business with you? Can you really effectively propose a solution to them? No, you don't have all the information. So don't, right? This is a relationship. We have the right and the obligation to say yes or no. We're both checking each other out, right? So it's not just about them deciding to work with us. We get to decide whether we're going to work with them. And this whole conversation sheds an awful lot of light on how would they be to do business with. It doesn't mean you're not going to get a bad client here or there. They're on their best behavior in this conversation, then later they're terrible. That can happen. It's going to be a lot less, lot fewer. Okay. So really what it looks like is you ask all the questions, you get all the information that you need, you really listen to what they're saying, you identify if it fits, if there's a fit or not, you determine, can I help them? Do I want to help them? Two critical questions. And then if the answer is yes to both of those, you provide them with a proposed solution where you summarize what you think you heard. Because one of the ways that we eliminate objections is by repeating what we heard and matching our solution to that. Okay? It's, if I heard you correctly, that you do a summary, right? Based on our conversation, this is the need, this is the situation, this is blah, blah, blah. What we propose is to do X, Y, and Z. Here's how we do it. This is the investment. Here's how that works, blah, blah. And you make sure before you leave that conversation that you have a next step, because this is the other thing we do. We leave it up to them, right? It's, if you don't, thank you so much for sharing all of that information. I do believe we can help you out here. If you don't mind, I'd like to take the information back to the office, go back over it, put a proposal together. Could we schedule a time to get back together next week when we can go over it? If they say, well, can you just email it to me? You can say, I can. I have learned over the years that is not the best way for us to do this because potentially there's going to be questions and I'm not going to be there to answer them. So if next week isn't, the conversation's gonna be like 20 minutes, but if you don't have time next week, do you have time the following week? You don't have to give in to everything, right? And if they say, well, I would really rather that you just emailed it to me, you can say, okay, well, I can email it to you. Let's talk about what the steps are after that. How would you like me to follow up after that? I can send the email on Wednesday. Should we plug in a time to talk on Thursday? You can also say to them, if they're, talking to several people, whatever, you can ask them, well, how do I want to say this? You can say something like, if we end up not being the best fit for you, that's fine. Our goal is that you find the best fit. I just ask that you let us know because I don't want to be trying to follow up with you when you've moved on. And I don't want to I don't want you to be uncomfortable. I just think, there's not a need for that. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay. We think we're the best resource for you. If you don't, I get it. That as long as you have what works for you, we're going to be happy. So everything that I'm talking about is eliminating all of those icky things that can happen and do happen throughout the sales process that causes people to avoid doing them or doing them uncomfortably so they don't come off as well. And discovery, in my opinion, it's more natural, it's more comfortable, it's easier because you're not doing all those things that you don't like to do. And you're being honest and straightforward with people, which people respect and appreciate. So when we talk about building trust, you can build it fairly quickly by being upfront and honest with people. Okay. This is how we eliminate ghosting. We just hold to a next step. It's okay to want to have a next step. And part of this is you being able to keep some control over the process. I think too often we give control away and then we don't know what to do. We do this, okay, I'll send over the proposal, let me know how it looks. And then we don't hear from them. We sit there going, well, I told him to let me know. I haven't heard from him. I don't want to be a pest, but I want to know what's going on. I mean, have they picked somebody? Have they not picked somebody? Should I call them? Should I email them? What should I do about it? Okay, let's not. Let's have a next step so that we know and they know, okay, I'm going to reach out to you on Thursday. Okay, I'm going to, whatever, right? Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is exactly right. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and ask the hard questions. I honestly submit to you that if you approach selling as not selling, as learning, it gets easier at the from the beginning. Is it going to be uncomfortable pushing on some questions? Sure it is. Absolutely. Remember what the goal is. The goal is for them to get the solution they need. That's the goal. It might be you, it might be someone else. Your job is to learn as much as you can about them and their situation so you can help them figure out whether you are the best solution for them or not. And you might not be, and that's okay. You just want to know, and they just want to know, frankly. What would you suggest is a fair number of follow-up times when there is no response? There's this, so let me say this. I think 4. Having said that, I think the most important way to follow up is with a phone. For a variety of reasons, not the least of which is we have given ourselves up to email. And email's easy, and it's non-threatening, and it's whatever it is that people feel more comfortable with it, but you don't know whether they got it. You don't know whether they opened it. You're putting technically responsibility back in their hands. I think you can do a mix of things. I think the first thing's a phone call. And if you get their voicemail, you can say on the voicemail, I'll shoot you an email in case that's better for you for communicating, because for some people it is. And then at some point you have to do what a lot of people call the breakup message, which is, I haven't heard back. We haven't been able to connect. And it seems like now is not the right time for you to move forward with this. So I'm going to step off. I'll put a note in my calendar to reach back out to you in a couple months and see if things have changed. If I'm wrong, please give me a call or shoot me an email. But otherwise, I'm going to let you go for now because I don't want to start being a pest. Okay? That is the email that gets the most response because either, remember, whatever it is you sell is a high priority to you. It is not necessarily to the person you're in a conversation with. So they could get out of a meeting with you and a fire could start, right? Someone could call them up and all of a sudden their attention is someplace else. So a lot of times it's I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, and they're not getting to it. And then you say, okay, I'm stepping off, and they go, oh, no, no. Now it is elevated to a higher priority. Okay. And if it isn't, then you know you can stop reaching out to them. And you can put it in your calendar to reach out again in a couple of months and see if things have changed or, if they move forward with someone else. You can also leave a message and say, listen, I don't know whether, priorities have changed or, you've gotten really busy or you've gone with someone else. And I don't want to be pestering you. So I just want you to know if you've gone with another provider, I'm okay with that. Just let me know. Okay. So we need to become unafraid of that. The worst thing, this is what I always do. Worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Well, you're not going to die. You're not going to lose a limb. So they're either not going to respond or they're going to say, no, we went with someone else. Okay. You just have something for you that lets you move on. That's why we do the breakup. Okay. Because it lets you move on. You've said your final piece. You've let them know you're not going to call anymore for now. You can go. Okay. It's great questions. Now, once you've gotten the client, your discovery is not over. You need to continue to nurture that relationship. You need to continue to learn about what's going on with them. You need to continue to help them problem solve, especially when it's a problem that doesn't have to do with what you sell. Okay. So there's the transaction. That's whatever the thing is they're buying from you. That's one relationship. And then there's the nurtured relationship. And both of them are important for long-term success, right? The reason why I talk about this is because you cannot rely on the transactional relationship you have with them. And this is what a lot of people do. They say, if they need something, they know I'm here, they'll reach out. That is not true. A lot of people say, hey, they're still buying from me, things must be good. Okay. But is there more business you could be getting? Are there other things you could be selling to them? Because remember, when you were in the selling conversation with them, you weren't talking about everything you do. You were listening to them talk about one specific thing and you were responding to one specific thing. They don't know everything else you do. And hopefully you weren't telling them everything you do because they weren't listening. They don't care. Let's go back to the hard truths. They don't care. They don't care till they care. They don't care till they need it. So we have to stay in the relationship with them and learn what's going on with them and help them problem solve in whatever ways and all of those things so that when another need comes up that we can help with, we're there. We're top of mind. We're having the conversations. The other thing I'll say is that if they're falling on hard times, you need to know that too. Before all of a sudden you can't get them on the phone. Before all of a sudden they're not paying their bill. So it isn't enough just to have them buying whatever they're buying. And I'm going to give you an example. I had a friend a couple years ago who sold, was a printer, and he sold letterhead and envelopes, back when we used letterhead and envelopes, to one of his clients. And they loved him. And they sent him referrals and they did reviews online and they just loved him. And one day they sent him, it was like Thanksgiving. They sent him a calendar in the mail with their company information on it, which was something that they could have bought from him, but they didn't. And he said to me, I don't get it. They love me. Why didn't they buy that for me? I said, because they didn't know that you offered that. And he said, well, sure they did. I told them the first time we met. And I said, they weren't listening to that the first time you met. They wanted letterhead and envelopes. And the first time you met was 2 years ago. So even if they'd heard it, they didn't remember it because it wasn't important. It wasn't relevant to them at the time. And this guy had done nothing to continue to nurture the relationship. So they decided they wanted this thing, or someone else knocked on their door and said, hey, have you ever thought about this? And it never occurred to them to reach out to him and say, hey, is this something you could do for us? That's our job. It's our responsibility to maintain the relationship and to help them out wherever we can, to pay attention to what's going on with them. Okay. So, other questions, comments? Thank you, Janice. Yeah. Oh, good. I'm so glad. It does not have to be scary, icky, difficult, so that's part of, like, my thing is, okay, let's not do what we don't want to do. Let's not do what doesn't work. Let's be human and let's be curious. Let's be in discovery mode. Excuse me. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're in pretty good shape. Thank you, Diane. And well, I hope we'll do this again sometime.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Thanks, you
Okay.
guys. Oh, great, Charlie. Excellent. You know what, Hubert? It depends. It depends on what their problem is. And if you have two different ways they could go, I would go deeper with them and let them know, okay, I could see us dealing with this two different ways. There's this and this, which sounds like it might be better for you, right? You can have that conversation. Yeah, I'll get the slides to score. Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There we go. And I will say, listen, go on the Cleveland Score website, learn about the other workshops that are going on, learn about all the things that Score does, because they are here to help you do great things in your business. So